Have you ever stopped to think about the fast pace of modern life? Amidst the daily hustle, we often forget what truly matters. Over 150 years ago, Henry David Thoreau withdrew to a cabin by Walden Pond with the purpose of understanding what is essential in life. His philosophy of simplicity and introspection still resonates today, inviting us to slow down, reflect, and live with more purpose. In this video, we'll explore how Walden teaches us to live more consciously, more simply, and surprisingly, more happily. Let's discover how Thoreau's ideas can still transform us in the modern world. Have you ever stopped to reflect on the frantic pace of modern life? What seems like a constant quest for more work, more consumption, more distractions, often leaves us feeling lost. We're always chasing something, but many times we're not sure exactly what that something is. It is in this context that Henry David Thoreau's work, Walden, holds even more relevance today. In 1845, Thoreau retreated to a small cabin on the shores of Walden Pond in an uninhabited wilderness to live more simply and reflectively. His goal was not to escape society, but to understand how to live a more authentic and deliberate life. He wanted to examine life closely, without the distractions and excesses that society at his time, and still today, constantly imposes on us. His retreat to nature was Thoreau's way of peeling back the layers of superficiality that accumulate in daily life. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." By distancing himself from social commitments, Thoreau wasn't withdrawing from life. On the contrary, he was seeking to understand what life truly had to offer. He sought to free himself from what, to him, was merely distraction, material goods, social pressures, and the relentless pursuit of status. And that brings us to a powerful reflection. What really matters in our lives? Are we truly focusing on the essentials? Beyond Thoreau's critique, this question about what is essential was also central to other thinkers of his time, such as the French philosopher René Descartes. Descartes sought absolute truth through cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, questioning everything that could be doubted in order to find what was truly secure and fundamental. Thoreau, in a sense, was making a similar move. He questioned daily life to seek a space of authenticity. Both challenge us to simplify, to go straight to what is true and necessary. Another relevant philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, also addressed the theme of simplicity in his work, The Discourse on the Origin and Basis of Inequality Among Men. Rousseau believed that civilization and the relentless pursuit of progress had corrupted human nature. For him, true freedom could only be achieved if we returned to living more simply and directly, in harmony with nature. Thoreau, though not as radical as Rousseau in his critique of civilization, shared the idea that social conventions often pull us away from what is truly essential. He thought society traps us in patterns that prevent us from living with purpose, and this is especially evident when we see the growing pressure to consume, accumulate, and compete. Walden is therefore not just a retreat experience, but a philosophical manifesto. It challenges the idea that we must always be in search of more things, more success, or more money. On the contrary, it suggests we should simplify our lives and refocus on what truly matters: our relationships, our mental health, our connection with nature, and our own personal growth. And here in the 21st century, with the rise of technology and the constant bombardment of information and products, Thoreau's words ring even more urgently. The life in us is too short for it to be lived superficially, chasing what others say is success. This reflection invites us to look at our own lives and ask, are we living deliberately or are we just going with the flow? Thoreau, by choosing a simpler life, offers an antidote to the external pressures that try to shape our choices. He reminds us that we don't need much to be truly happy. Happiness, he says, doesn't come from accumulating things, but from being in tune with what is essential. This is the invitation of Walden. Simplify your life, stop chasing an illusory ideal, and focus on what really matters. His philosophy isn't about escaping the world, but about being more authentic within it. finding balance in a world that often pushes us towards superficiality. After all, it is in the simple and the essential that we find true wealth. For Thoreau, simplicity wasn't just a lifestyle, it was a form of personal revolution. In a world marked by an obsession with having more, working more, and consuming more, he believed that true power lay in simplifying, in freeing oneself from the external pressures that keep us trapped. For him, real freedom wasn't in accumulating material goods or fulfilling societal obligations, but in the ability to live with only what is necessary and, even then, to live fully. When Thoreau decided to retreat to Walden, he wasn't just seeking an escape from society. He was creating an opportunity for the quiet revolution of his own life. He built his cabin with his own hands, spending as little as possible, with the goal of being self-sufficient. He grew his own food, cultivating beans and other simple crops. By doing this, he not only reduced his dependence on external institutions, but also put into practice his belief that true wealth doesn't lie in what we own, but in our ability to live with the essentials. The phrase "simplify, simplify" is perhaps Thoreau's most famous maxim, and it reflects his deep understanding that life becomes more meaningful when we eliminate everything that is unnecessary. But what exactly did Thoreau mean by simplify? He invites us to slow down, to stop chasing after goals and possessions that don't bring us true happiness. Simplifying means making space for what is truly important: contemplation, self-awareness, and finding joy in the little things. In Walden, he describes his daily life in simple but deeply meaningful ways. His routine was a balanced dance between work, leisure, and contemplation. Unlike many who see work as a burden or a means to an end, Thoreau viewed work as something that could be done with pleasure and at the right pace. He spent hours observing the nature around Walden Pond, watching the changes in the seasons and describing the subtleties of the plants and animals. For Thoreau, every little detail of nature, from the birds singing to the clouds forming in the sky, had profound significance. He believed that true wealth was found in these attentive observations of the world around us. For him, silence, peace, and solitude were as important as any other aspect of life. He wrote, "I wanted to see if I could live in such a way that all my senses could be useful and pleasant." And that's exactly what he did. He took the time to observe, reflect, and experience the world without the pressures of daily life. In one of the most touching passages of Walden, Thoreau compares the arrival of spring to a rebirth, not just of nature, but of the human spirit. He saw in the changing of the seasons a reflection of personal renewal. When spring arrived, he didn't just see the earth coming back to life. He also saw his own spirit being renewed and awakened to new possibilities. This attention to detail and the beauty of the everyday is an invitation, not only for Thoreau, but for all of us, to slow down. In a world where we are constantly on the move, where distractions are endless, he challenges us to find joy in the small things, to celebrate the simple and the natural, and to reconnect with what truly matters. Thoreau didn't advocate that everyone should isolate themselves in nature, but he encouraged us to seek a deeper connection with it, whether through a walk in the park or moments of silence. He believed that by simplifying our lives, we create space for what truly matters: contemplation, self-awareness, and the freedom to live according to our values. And for him, that was true freedom, living authentically and truly, without the chains imposed by society. Thoreau's philosophy of simplicity goes beyond just a call to reduce material possessions. It is, instead, an invitation to rethink what really occupies our time and minds. By simplifying, we not only cut out material things, but also the internal distractions that pull us away from what's essential: our own peace, our connection with others, and our ability to appreciate the beauty of the world around us. And this invitation is as necessary today as it was in the 19th century. The silent revolution of returning to the essentials, slowing down, and living in a fuller, more mindful way. Walden is, at its core, a journey of discovery. Throughout his time at the lake, Thoreau invites us to look both inward and outward with greater attention, to truly stop and notice what's around us as well as what's within. Introspection is one of the keys he offers us for understanding life in a deeper and more meaningful way. One of the first things Thoreau highlights in his work is how we use our time. He observes how often we waste it on worries and distractions that lead us nowhere. He wrote, "The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it." With this statement, Thoreau forces us to reflect on how we spend our time and what we're sacrificing to obtain what we deem important, such as status, material goods, or even occupations that hold no real value to us. This reflection on time prompts us to question our priorities and what we truly want from our lives. For Thoreau, time is our most precious resource, and wasting it on purposeless things is the ultimate waste. But the book goes beyond just a reflection on time. Walden is also an invitation to see solitude in a new light. Unlike many who associate loneliness with sadness or emptiness, Thoreau sees it as an opportunity for personal growth. He writes, "I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude." This phrase is key to understanding Thoreau's philosophy. He didn't view solitude as something negative, but as a space to listen to oneself, to reflect without external distractions. He believed that in being alone, we could truly connect with our deepest selves and understand our place in the world. Solitude for Thoreau isn't something to fear. It's something that offers clarity and insight. Another fundamental aspect of Walden is Thoreau's relationship with nature. For him, nature wasn't just a beautiful backdrop, it was a true teacher. He described the life around the pond in great detail, from the melting ice in spring to the sounds of nocturnal creatures, and even the silence, which he found profoundly enriching. Nature to Thoreau was a mirror of the human soul. He believed that by carefully observing the natural world, we could learn lessons about ourselves and how to live more fully and authentically. The cycles of nature, like the birth and death of the seasons, the rainy days and sunny ones, were for Thoreau reflections of the human experience. He saw nature as a direct reflection of our inner journey. Beyond his philosophical musings, Thoreau was also an activist, and Walden reflects this side of his personality. He didn't just preach simplicity and introspection, he also advocated for moral action. A clear example of this is his refusal to pay taxes that funded slavery. Thoreau believed that living according to his values was more important than adhering to societal conventions or laws. This act of resistance was a way for him to show that he wouldn't accept a society that supported injustice. And this moral courage is a central aspect of Thoreau's philosophy. He teaches us that true freedom isn't just about living according to our personal beliefs, but about acting on them, even when it means opposing the status quo. Thoreau's active stance shows that Walden isn't just a book about the pursuit of simplicity or solitude as a means of self-discovery. It's also a call to action. The true purpose of living deliberately for Thoreau was to find the moral courage to stand against what's wrong in society. Through his refusal to pay taxes, Thoreau reminds us that true freedom is not just a personal matter, but a social one. By following his deepest values, he invites us to do the same, to act in line with our beliefs, no matter how challenging that might be. Therefore, Walden is a multifaceted book. It speaks to us about time, solitude, nature, and moral courage. In each of these themes, Thoreau offers a lens through which we can view the world and ourselves more deeply. He challenges us to look inward and outward, to question how we live, and to act with greater authenticity. His philosophy isn't just about simplicity, but about living with purpose and courage, not just in relation to ourselves, but also in relation to society. In today's world, the message of Walden is more urgent than ever. We live in a time where digital connection is constant, yet true connection with ourselves and with the world around us seems increasingly distant. We are always connected, whether through screens, social media, or instant messages. But often we feel disconnected from the essence of life. This disconnect is one of the greatest dilemmas of our modern age, and it is precisely here that Thoreau's wisdom remains a powerful guide. Thoreau reminds us that we don't need much to be happy. In a world surrounded by consumerism and the relentless pursuit of more, he teaches us that happiness isn't found in having everything we want, but in wanting what we already have. He wrote, "Happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have." This simple yet profound reflection invites us to rethink what really matters and to cultivate gratitude for what is already present in our lives. Instead of constantly chasing something new, Thoreau challenges us to recognize the value in the simple and immediate. Deep down, he shows us that true happiness isn't in the endless pursuit of more, but in the acceptance and appreciation of what we already have. But what does Walden teach us in practical terms? Thoreau doesn't limit himself to abstract philosophy. He offers us clear principles for living more consciously and meaningfully. The first lesson is to slow down. Time for Thoreau is the most precious resource we possess, and he invites us to use it wisely. In a world where we're always rushing, moving from one task to another, Thoreau challenges us to slow down, to live with more calm, to reflect on how we're spending our time. He reminds us that life is short, and by chasing after superficial activities, we may lose sight of what truly matters. The second lesson is to reduce. The less we accumulate, the freer we become. In Walden, Thoreau explains how the pursuit of material goods and social status enslaves us, taking away our freedom. Unlike many of us who are in a constant search for more possessions, he proposes the path of simplicity. He believed that by reducing the number of things in our lives, we open up space for experiences, relationships, and inner peace. The idea that less is more is a central message in Walden and an invitation to rethink what we truly need to live a fulfilling life. The third practical principle Walden offers us is reconnection with nature. Thoreau believed that by stepping away from the chaos of modern life and spending time in nature, we can find a peace we often forget exists. A simple walk in the woods, for example, can help us reconnect with ourselves, calm the mind, and find answers to the questions that trouble us. In our daily lives, we often distance ourselves from nature, but Thoreau reminds us that it is a powerful ally in the quest for simplicity and inner peace. Reconnection with nature is not just a physical practice, but a spiritual one that helps us regain balance and clarity. However, Walden is not a manual for abandoning society. Thoreau doesn't tell us to isolate ourselves from the modern world, but rather to live with more intention, more authenticity. As he himself wrote, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." He challenges us to look at the world in a new way, to be more mindful of our choices, more attentive to our actions and thoughts. The real question he leaves us with is, how can we live more consciously, more simply, and more truly? He invites us to reflect on what we're really doing with our lives, what we're truly valuing, and how we can live in a way that aligns with our principles and what really matters. This is the legacy of Walden, an invitation to live deliberately and with purpose. Thoreau teaches us that true freedom isn't in having more, but in wanting less and living according to our deepest values. He invites us to find harmony not only with the external world, but also with ourselves. His philosophy isn't just about external simplicity, it's about the search for a rich, deep, and authentic inner life. And this is a legacy that, more than ever, is relevant in the busy, consumer-driven world we live in today.